Being against the interests of the majority of Americans is what got them here. It's not what gets them to a better place.
Yeah. All right. Your show. Take it away, Chris. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, my friend. You too. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Right and wrong can be very different from what matters to the right and left. Right is celebrating the SpaceX launch. Not because of Elon Musk. Who cares about him? This is about a chance to save astronauts that have been up there way too long, okay? Losing bone density, okay? This is a beautiful achievement if it happens. The people hating on the launch, mocking the effort, wishing it not to work, these people are the problem. And I know it's easy to be your worst on social media, to go on there. But listen, here's what needs to happen. If you want decency, be decent and call out indecency. You have a role. You have power. You're going on there anyway. So many of you are desperate to engage. Go after these people. Maya Angelou taught us well. If you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. You have that power, and we need it. People are way too casual with being so caustic, with being their worst. Be the change. Another right move that is being called wrong is not shutting down the government. A shutdown does nothing to the people who cause it. It only punishes the public. I am no fan of continuing resolutions. They are supposed to be for emergencies. And they were designed in a way to assume that Congress would keep negotiating on appropriations. Now, they're the rule more than the exception. Democrats and Republicans both kick the can, basically quitting on doing the real job of negotiating and passing all 12 appropriation bills. No one gets to do this in their job. None of us. Only in Congress. But this one in particular must be exposed to show how ugly the play is. Senator Schumer backed off the shutdown threat. Why? Because he was told the last thing Democrats need is to shut the government down and once again seem to be against the interests of the majority. And you know what? He made the right call. But not according to many leaders in his party. They want you to believe that they're fighting for you by shutting down the government. They just want to play the game. And I'm not just talking about the AOC socialist types, okay? Most media are playing up the split in the Democrat ranks. I don't give a damn about that. That's part of the problem. They just love covering the game. Did you hear what Pelosi said and Hakeem Jeffries and his Schumer? Forget it. Forget playing their game. Expose it. Make it end, okay? Pelosi actually wants senators to defy Schumer and shut the government down. Pelosi's statement is proof of the problem. Trump and Musk have offered the Congress a false choice between a government shutdown or a blank check. What proof is there of that? It makes a devastating assault on the well-being of working families across America. What proof is there of that in this CR? I read it. America has experienced a Trump shutdown before, but this damaging legislation only makes matters worse. How? How? We must fight back for a better way. What better way? Telling senators to defy Schumer? Pelosi postures like this is about fighting for you against tax cuts for the rich and taking pressure off the working class. That is bull blank bleep. This is a continuing resolution. Do you know what that means? Pelosi does. She's lying to you about it. Why? Advantage. A continuing resolution means they are extending the funding from the last budget deal, which was a CR. Okay? It was under Biden. It was basically the same spending that is in this one. So what is Pelosi's proposition? That the Democrats were doing you dirty when they all agreed to this same spending that Biden signed last year? Is that what she's saying? Here is the fact. In September, Biden signed $1.6 trillion in a continuing resolution, a CR. All the Democrats voted for it. December, Biden signed another one, $1.7 trillion CR. Added over $100 billion in disaster aid. There was a specific circumstance. And basically all the Democrats voted for it. Now this bill, this CR, is essentially the same. Same one they passed in December. It has $1.7 trillion in funding, just like that one. Are there any differences at all? Yes. Yes, there are. It cuts the D.C. budget by $1 billion and other earmarked programs. It adds $6 billion to defense spending. But these aren't major changes in spending. The only legit gripe is that this CR is twice as long as the last two. But they're not arguing that. This is about party advantage, and you see it in the party pawns. Looks like a government shutdown is going to be avoided, handing a political victory to President Trump. What's the suggestion in this BS? Right? That they shouldn't have done it, that they should have fought back, that the Democrats are weak. That is somebody who doesn't give a damn about what's happening to people, just which side seems to be winning. A CR isn't a win. It's a punt. It's avoiding disaster. But all of this rhetoric is just stirring the pot because social media mavens thrive on the game. Congressman Ro Khanna wrote, when the Senate minority leader sells you out, the only option is to take back the party and country with grassroots activists in blue and red districts to stand up for the Constitution and our democracy. I respect Ro Khanna. I asked him to come on tonight to defend this. And when he wants to, he will be welcome. But how did Schumer sell out by keeping the government going? Was there another deal to be had? No. So then you wanted a shutdown. This is the wrong way to do what is right. Democrats need to wake up to the fiscal reality that we are drowning in debt and can't keep spending like we were in a pandemic. Punishing the rest of us for their inability to make a deal, their inability to win enough elections so that they have control is BS. And again, when the Democrats were in power, they did CRs too that had the almost exact same spending that's in the current bill. That's why I'm so pissed off about it. They have no high ground on this, okay? This isn't cutting Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare and in favor of a tax cut for the top. If that's what was in this, go for it. Fight to the death. That's a hill to die on. They did it twice in a row, just like this. I gave you the numbers. It's a game. Please see it and reject it. Another wrong move. Now look, here's where you're going to get upset. I have completely clear eyes when it comes to what President Trump is and is not. I do not take what he says seriously all the time. He wildly exaggerates facts and circumstances and often backs off on what seems like a hard position and would be for just about any other politician, but not Trump. However, today he said something that he can't get away with. That speech at the DOJ was all huff and puff from the campaign trail, except for one threat that the man who's in charge of our country cannot say without being taken to task. And here it is.
And I believe that CNN and MSDNC, who literally write 97.6% bad about me, are political arms of the Democrat Party. And in my opinion, they're really corrupt and they're illegal. What they do is illegal.
My first reaction was, what does that mean they are illegal? He didn't even read the stat right. Then I realized it doesn't have to make sense to be something that should incense every one of you. Look, you do not get to punish a free press because you don't like what and how it reports. Politicians have always had a problem with this, okay? You have these new digital megaphones, the pod people. They're not reporters. They're not journalists. They're giving you hot takes, and there's a place for that, okay? I have a podcast. I get it. But there's a reason that they're all attacking journalists and journalism. It's because they want the market share, all right? Trump prefers them because most of the ones making money are kissing his hiney. All right? If that changes, his position towards them will change. And I get why politicians don't like people in the press. I grew up with one of them. I was raised by one. And I'm old enough to remember as a working journalist when President Obama's Attorney General Eric Holder came after journalists who refused to reveal sources. I get the animus. There's always been tension. But the idea of calling us illegal and suggesting in a speech at the DOJ that you somehow want to use them in this way, that is lawfare at its ugliest. And remember, the one piece of high ground that you have to give Trump, well, you don't have to, but I do, is that political opponents went too far in trying to prosecute him instead of just beating him at the polls. But now he is threatening to do something that is worse than what was ever done to him. And it is wrong. And I don't care if he doesn't like it. And I don't care if you don't like it. If no one around him has the guts to tell him this, then he has to hear it from me. You, sir, are our president, and you need to be better than this. If you want all of the canceling and the use of prosecutorial powers to go after people on the basis of political opposition to change, you need to be the change. You want to be considered great? Attacking a free press will never get you anywhere near Mount Rushmore. The only rush will be to forget you. And to say this at the DOJ when you're trying to return that agency to its roots of staying out of politics, it's wrong, and we all know it. And whatever consequence comes with that, let it come. All right? Now, let's talk about the state of play in Congress and what this means for your best interests. California member of Congress, Democrat Ami Bera, okay, today penned a letter with more than 60 Democratic members of Congress urging Schumer to vote against the government funding bill, even accused him of capitulating to Trump. And Republican member of Congress from Tennessee, Tim Burchett. Good to have you both. I'm getting a call from the president right now. No, I'm not. So, Ami, thank you for being with us. Why would you prefer a shutdown to what is in there right now?
Well, first off, I'm glad to be on with Tim. He's a good friend, and we serve together admirably. Nobody wants a shutdown. It's never good for and a continuing resolution. I think Tim would agree with me. Is not a good way to run the government either. So I'm going to come on your show and say, Tim and I ought to work together to figure out how do we lower the debt, the deficit, get spending under control, and also raise revenue. I supported Simpson-Bowles, back in the day. President Obama didn't want to bring it to the floor. If we want to fix this, it's going to take Democrats and Republicans having a Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid moment where we jump off the cliff together and everyone's mad at us, but we did the right thing.
They both died.
Yeah, I know.
They both died, by the way, Ami. They both died, by the way.
Well,
just
they didn't die.
You may want to architect a different ending.
They didn't die in that jump. So.
Listen, Ami, I'm with you. I'm just saying that I see this as posturing and brinksmanship. If they don't vote for it, then what's going to happen? Look, you think you're going to cut a deal?
I mean, it's a negotiation. I would have preferred doing a 30-day clean CR. This isn't totally a clean CR. I understand, Senator Schumer had to make a decision. It's a Sophie's choice. I would have continued to negotiate, but again, I'll give the Freedom Caucus and folks like Tim credit because when they've faced a similar choice, they've stuck to their guns and, often they'll win the negotiation.
Right. I mean, look, from Schumer's, just for the political shorthand, and Tim, it's good to see you. Thanks for wearing that Tennessee orange. Schumer doesn't have that choice. He's not in control of the negotiation pace. The Republicans didn't want to do it. So he would have to just own the shutdown. Tim, what is your perspective on this epidemic of CRs and your brothers and sisters just kicking the can down the road because they don't have whatever it takes to get 12 appropriation bills done?
Well, thanks for having me on, Chris. And clearly when ZZ Top sang their hit song, Every Girl's Crazy About a Sharp-Dressed Man, they were talking about Ami. He's always looking good. He's always got the vest on. And
he looks good. He wins tonight. He wins.
I'm glad my wife's not watching this, or she's like, honey, we need to get you a vest. But anyway, no, I'm the very last congressman, I think President Trump told me, or somebody did, maybe the speaker, that has not voted for a CR. I think it's a cop-out. It's a terrible way to run. My only reason for voting for it, and you were correct, that it is basically Pelosi and Schumer's budget. They moved some money around. They cut some from the IRS and gave a little more to the war pimps at the Pentagon, which I don't like. But the reason is because they did not increase the size of government. It actually decreased. If you take in, it was actually about a $6 or $8 billion cut, which in Tennessee terms is a lot of money. But for you big city boys, that's not a heck of a lot of money. And I thought it was a good time to start thinking about slowing the size of government down.
So how are you celebrating voting for your first CR?
I'm actually working on a skateboard. Tulsi Gabbard reminded me at the president's speech that her birthday was next month, and I've been promising her a bamboo skateboard I'm trying to not use any carcinogens, and it's a new process that I work on after work and late at night when I get up early in the morning. So you heard it first here.
Ami, you hear this guy? You can't find a way to outsmart this guy and figure out how to get a deal done. And you don't deserve that vest
people
that you're wearing.
Careers, underestimating me, brother. That's
not me.
I don't come in his sandbox, and he doesn't come in mine.
I was an early adapter to the Burchett love affair, okay? I've had you on from jump here at NewsNation because you're a fair broker. But, Ami, I'll tell you, look, what bothers me about this is it would be different if your CRs had been different, okay? But this is moving some money around. It does not assault Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I don't think you guys are wrong to suggest that there are members of the Republican caucus that want to do that. But it's not done in this. So why are people in your party screaming that it is?
I mean, because I think there's concerns about the negotiating piece of this. The bigger fight's coming up in reconciliation. Again, Tim is an honest broker, and that's why I appreciate him. I know where he stands. He's going to tell you how he feels. You talked about civility, radical civility. We ought to sit down and say, okay, we've got to get spending under control. How can we do this in a way that doesn't hurt the American public? Tim talked about raising defense spending. That's $6 billion. I'd rather actually get better schools. I'd rather build better roads. Yeah. I'd rather do some things differently. Pay down the deficit. So there's things we could do. I actually don't think we're that, our parties are very far apart, our leadership's far apart, but put some folks in a room, say, what do we do that's right for the American public? How do we do right by them? And I think we can get a lot done.
Yeah,
I appreciate you.
I shouldn't say this, Chris, but let me say something that offends my friend. The Democrats use the carrot and the stick much more effective than we do. And he's under a lot of pressure, and he's a principled guy. And I'll just leave it at that because, we're kind of on our side is a little free range, more or less. And I'm not a member of the Freedom Caucus. I'm like a caucus of one. I told Jim Jordan, you get me for free. I vote more conservative than your members, and you don't have to buy me a chicken dinner, and I don't get a decoder ring. So there you go.
It's hard to dislike him, isn't it, Ami? I've been trying for 2.5 years. Thank you both for coming on together.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Always.
I will,
have a great
and I'll tell you what, my audience appreciates nothing more than proof of the proposition that left and right can come together and talk about what's reasonable. And it's a low bar, but I'll take it. And I appreciate you two for getting us over it. Tim, God bless and have a good weekend. Ami, you're always welcome here.
God bless you as well.
All right. He did outdress us, though. That's embarrassing. I'm glad my wife's not watching either. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up. Okay. Now, on this show, I don't just say something and it's law. Okay? I put out propositions, I make arguments, and then they will be tested also. This speech at the DOJ today, am I getting it wrong? Am I focusing on the wrong thing? I believe that when he starts saying that one of the jobs of the DOJ should be shutting me up when he doesn't like what I say, is too much. Okay? I want to bring in a man who was a lawyer to him, who has a different take and believes I'm getting it wrong. He will make his case, and you will hear it, and you will judge for yourself. We'll report, you decide. Catchy. Next.
Every day you watch people get up and go out and do the very best that they can. And we've got great people that really want to make a difference. NewsNation is more than happy to give you the perspective so that you can make your own decisions. NewsNation is taking the time to say, hey, it's asking the questions that nobody's asking.
The appetite is greater than it has ever been for perspective, for understanding, and for information that they can not just trust, but use.
NewsNation, news for all Americans.
President Trump went to the DOJ today, laid out his plan for retribution, basically, in a rarely done, highly politicized speech. He took aim at prosecutors, agencies. We've heard him say that before. But then he went after the media. Take a listen.
These newspapers are really no different than a highly paid political operative. And it has to stop. It has to be illegal. A lot of the judges that I had, if you look at them, they take tremendous abuse in the New York Times and the Washington Post, all of the different networks. They take such abuse. It should be illegal, and it probably is illegal in some form. And I believe that CNN and MSDNC, who literally write 97.6% bad about me, are political arms of the Democrat Party.
Former Trump defense attorney Jim Trusty joins me now. Jim, it's good to have you. Thank you for doing it. So, calm me down, Jim. Why should I not believe that this is unlike anything I've ever heard from an American president? And again, I remember Eric Holder coming after us for not wanting to share sources about national security reporting. So I get politicians not liking the media. We're easy to dislike. But why shouldn't I think that this is lawfare at its most obnoxious?
Yeah, I'm more optimistic than you. I'm not really disputing what you heard or how imprecise it was. And that's kind of my focus. When he says it should be illegal, I wish it was illegal, it's got to be illegal. I mean, to coin a phrase from your last segment, it's kind of like free-range speaking. And as a lawyer, you're like, put the chickens back in the pen, goddamn. We need to keep this tight. We need to be precise. And obviously, it wasn't precise language to say it's illegal. I think, from my experience with him, that what he's talking about is defamation, that he's concerned that he's been defamed over the years, that the standard of actual malice for public figures is an impossibly high standard to kind of overcome at trial. So, again, I guess we have to take a little bit of a wait and see. But I did not take this as this incredibly dark day. The other thing I mentioned, Chris, if you looked at the overall tone, I think it was absolutely expected that he'd come in there like Al Pacino with a flamethrower, threatening everything that moves, angry, kind of like Trump 1.0 at his angriest. I didn't catch that at all. The guy spent 15 minutes talking about Bobby Knight. And the thing ends with YMCA playing. So, was it a great moment for decorum or precision? No. But was it a declaration of war? And it really, even not that particularly different than all of his campaign speeches where he would point to the cameras in the back and rail about the media. I just didn't take it as a quantitative change or a big leap to saying in some dog whistle way to a bunch of career prosecutors, I know you've got a great history going after violent crime and spies and terrorism, but now I want you to go after the Cuomo family. I just don't see it.
So what do you think the chance is that A.G. Bondi or anyone around her does the equivalent of say hello to my little Frank to the media after this speech from Trump about reporting that he doesn't like?
I think there's a big difference between verbal hostility and legal action. So I'm really not putting my breath that this is the hallmark of an administration that literally wants to prosecute journalists no matter how much they don't like him. I mean, look, President Trump, for the imprecision of his words, he actually has kind of shockingly thick skin. I think he went through something with weaponization, with lawfare, that is a horrific stain on the history of the department. I've had people that are hardcore Democrats, officials during Democratic AGs, that would reach out to me and say, it's going to take 10 years for the department to fix its reputation. And I agree with that. I don't think it's a blanket indictment of everyone there. I still have friends there. I was there 17 years. I got a lot of vested interest in maintaining friendships with just good people that I've gotten to know as being good principled prosecutors. But this inventiveness, this lawfare, this political interference that we saw, that I saw firsthand, and I think the public at least had some idea about, is something that needs to be fully exposed and destroyed. And that, again, there's not going to be OPR stuff, office of professional responsibility, because the most serious culprits and misconduct have left the department. So what's left is either talking to the media or doing some sort of historic bipartisan law enforcement scrub of everything that happened. And I think that would be a good idea. And I don't think that's the same as lawfare. I think that's just accountability and preventing this from happening, in the future on either side. I don't want to see lawfare going left or going right. I don't want to see it end.
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody who watches this show knows that I took a ton of heat from the brothers and sisters on the left for saying I didn't like the New York cases against Trump. And frankly, I don't like the deal they offered Mayor Adams. I'm not talking about the campaign because my brother is in it, but I'm already on record. I didn't like the indictment. I don't like the deal that Trump offered him and then said he didn't know anything about, which, again, is a signature Trump move. Either dismiss the charges with prejudice or pardon him. Don't keep hooks in the guy until after the election. I mean, it's a bad look. It's bad for Adams. It's bad for the administration. I know that you're right, Jim. There is no legal basis for him to go after the media just because he doesn't like it. He doesn't have to like Times v. Sullivan. It's the law of the land until his pals in the robes decide to change it. But when you're at the DOJ, Jim, if you were my lawyer, you wouldn't be saying to me, hey, I love you, but, calm it down for a little bit. Let some time go.
I'm sad. I love you, Chris. I mean, I have some professional respect for you, but, maybe if you paid just enough, I would actually use the love word. I kind of doubt it. But look, I'm a big proponent of free press. I do think he's got a legitimate beef that the mainstream media, piles on and looks for every vague statement and turns it into a crystal clear negative statement to kind of point and phrase from what we're talking about tonight. And he's going to be
not illegal.
Probably every president feels some frustration in that regard. I think he has seen a real difference in media treatment over the years that sticks with him pretty hard. But again, I'm optimistic. I think cool heads will prevail. I think he had his fun today. He talked about everything under the sun. He was lighthearted. He wasn't sitting there glaring about how he's going to put anyone in jail. And I think this storm will pass without any real damage.
Well, Jim, if it doesn't, I'm calling you because I'd love to see how they react to you being my defense attorney when they come after you. But Jim, I appreciate you coming on to make the case. I'm not trying to say that everything he was talking about with the DOJ is bad or unnecessary. I believe that there is lawfare, and I believe it has to stop, and I believe he was a victim of it. That's all true. The way to make it better is not to come after me because he doesn't like what I say. But if that's what it is, let it come, and I'll call you soon. Jim, thanks for coming on the show. I look forward to having you on, hopefully not as my attorney.
For that call, I think you're going to be fine. But great talking to you.
Thank you. All right, God bless, be well. 4 minutes and 30 seconds coming up. Another topic Tucker and I took on in our conversation was his buddy and business partner, Elon Musk, in the White House. I don't have a problem with Elon, but how he's doing things is getting him in trouble. The conversation next.
Look, we don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm praying that it does because I think it's our last chance to save the country.
I'm fine with it working. I want it to work. I feel like he's working against his own goals by getting things wrong all the time.
Maybe, but big picture, he's right.
President, in our lifetime, say that everything in government is bad. Justice doesn't work. The elections don't work. Wall Street is corrupt. None of the institutions of government can do everything. All the tax dollars are wasted. It's like I keep getting the same message from them. And Musk, to me, has been a huge disappointment. I believe the man is a genius, okay? He has done remarkable things. He doesn't know that the federal judiciary is able to check the executive. He doesn't know that Social Security, the trust fund, isn't part of our debt structure. I can't believe a genius doesn't know these things. So then why would he be messaging this way? Unless he doesn't want people to like the justice system. He doesn't want them to believe that government can do anything. And I don't understand that as a political message from a guy who's in charge of everything now. And what is underlying it in terms of your real ambition?
Well, I think I can answer some of them. I'm not surprised he doesn't know the details of how Social Security is structured at all. And I'm not surprised that as a naturalized American, he's not, didn't grow up with Schoolhouse Rock and doesn't understand the three branches perfectly. His job, from what I can tell, is to deal with the one thing that nobody has dealt with, which will be the end of the country, which is the country's bankruptcy. So the debt is what? 36.9, something like 37 trillion. Revenues last year, 2024, total federal revenues were under 5 trillion. Okay. So that doesn't work. And at a certain point, the people who are floating the country, the bond buyers, the foreign bond buyers, like I'm not, this doesn't, and everything will collapse. And from what I can tell, Elon's job is to try and get the spending down. And no one's been able to do that.
I'm okay with getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. But I'll tell you what, if they had called up Carlson and Cuomo and said, would you guys like to serve your country and see what you can find in terms of waste, fraud, and abuse? And we said, yes. I'll tell you what we wouldn't do is keep going off half-cocked every day about what we were finding when we weren't sure. We would not do that. We would have immediately come to an agreement.
Yeah, we'd probably
let's find stuff, okay? And then we're going to go to Congress and we're going to say, look at all the we found. And because we don't trust them, we would then go public with it at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think we would have a blue ribbon commission and we present our findings.
But he is going off half-cocked.
But none of that's worked. And I feel like, look, we don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm praying that it does because I think it's our last chance to save the country.
I'm fine with it working. I want it to work. I feel like he's working against his own goals by getting things wrong all the time.
Maybe, but big picture, he's right. So USAID, which I grew up around in Washington, I can just tell you firsthand, having seen it, it is a force for evil in the world. I think it does probably good things on the margins, but bottom line, it is destabilizing other governments. It's a form of the ugliest kind of imperialism, totally detached from American interests. It's like really bad, and the more you know, that's why it's so shocking to read it all, the more indefensible it becomes.
The Secretary of State disagrees with you.
He may or may not. I'm just saying, he's from Miami. I'm from D.C., so I just tell you I have, I think, deep exposure to this, and there's no doubt. By the way, USAID gets zeroed out. How many third world presidents complained about that? Did you see any being like, oh my gosh, we want our aid? They don't want American aid in that form because it destabilizes democratic governments. It overturns the culture of the country. Oh, you need more trans athletes. They hate it, and there's nothing they can do about it. So that tells you right there. Now, that's a minuscule part of the entire federal budget.
Agreed. And he just happened to start with the agency that's investigating him.
I don't think USAID has an investigative arm. Okay, they do. Okay. Well, whatever. Elon's being, attacked on many sides.
This was before anything happened.
Okay.
Look, I'm just saying you and I wouldn't have picked an agency that was looking into one of us without letting people know.
I'm not even aware of that. I just think big picture, the government is strangling the country. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
What does that mean?
It means that the richest place in the United States is the one place that produces nothing but bureaucratic jobs, D.C. It's the richest place, and it's the highest concentration of wealth in the United States. The counties around D.C. are the richest. They're like the majority of the top 10 are in D.C. And all that money is federal money. None of those people can ever be fired or are. It's not even clear what they're doing. A lot of their budgets are classified. Basically, there's no democratic control over any of this. The voters have no say in how this money is spent, and the people spending it are beyond any kind of correction. There's nothing you can do about it. And so it's truly out of control in a way that makes democracy impossible. And then there's the debt overhang, which really threatens in an imminent way to make all of these conversations just irrelevant. If we're a poor country that can't support, a military and can't keep up with our own infrastructure, then none of this stuff even matters.
So do you believe that the answer is to change the institutions, to destroy the institutions? What do you think the answer is?
So my sense is that you're not going to get anywhere unless, and I think this was their calculation, you come out like a freaking wild animal out of a box. So fast, so hard that you intimidate the of everyone into silence long enough that you gain momentum to continue the process of paring back government. One thing that I think no honest person can disagree with, we need reform, immediately, on every level. We can't keep doing it this way.
Well, we've been saying that a long time.
I know. And Trump is the first, and again, I don't know if it's going to work. I'm praying that it will, because this country is the last hope of the world. I really believe that more than ever, having just come back from other countries.
Right. That's why we have to make our kids travel, because everybody thinks America is the worst place in the world until you go somewhere else.
Dude, yes. And the thing that we need to preserve, I'm more convinced.
That's why I'm a little worried about all the bashing of our institutions. So making things better is fine if you have the ideas and the wherewithal to make it happen. But what I'm sensing from this administration is it's all broken, tear it all down. And that's easy to say, but I don't know that it's good.
Got one more, Antoine.
With USPS Ground Advantage, it's like you're with us every step of the way.
What's that?
Stay in the know from your dock to their door.
You know why a terrorist has almost 700 grand in his legal defense fund after assassinating the CEO of United Healthcare? Because people have a perverse sense of justice because they get screwed by insurance companies all the time. This is not the answer. That kid is a punk and a terrorist, and he should go away forever. And I don't care how people feel about that, because that's a misplaced sense of passion over this issue. What's more important is to highlight the problems in the system and demand something happens. Doctors are doing this. They're taking to social media to fight for their patients' rights and expose what the industry does specifically with prior authorization. We all know what that is, right? Here's a clip of one of them. Surgeon Elizabeth Potter, 14 million views and counting. Here's the message.
I got a phone call into the operating room saying that United Healthcare wanted me to call them about one of the patients who was having surgery today, who was actually asleep having surgery. So I scrubbed out of my case and I called United Healthcare, and the gentleman said he needed some information about her, wanted to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. And I was like, do you understand that she's asleep right now? And she has breast cancer. Insurance is out of control.
So you can look at that and say, well, even if it's real, I'm sure it's like 1 in a gazillion times. Nope. How do I know? Because I have doctors in my life. And one of them got in contact with me and said, did you see this clip? This happens all the time. I said, how do you know? She says, because this is what I do, fool, and you should cover it. So here we are. OBGYN Dr. Jamie Seaman, okay? You may have looked at her, Dr. Fit and Fabulous, on Instagram. She's doing great work. Doc, it's good to have you. Dr. Potter, thank you for joining as well. Dr. Potter, appreciate you putting it out there. Jamie, I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. Dr. Potter, the question is, was this the 1 in a million? Was this just one rogue person that did this and that it got fixed and everything was okay?
It's disingenuous.
Dr. Potter?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, this is not the 1 in a million. This is happening all the time.
All right. So, Jamie, give me context, because common sense says, oh, prior authorization, that's good. So you get everything lined up before, you know what is needed. You get the fight before anything's going to happen so that we can go into it clean and all on the same page. What's the reality?
It's not the reality. The reality is that doctors have prior authorizations piling up on their desk every single week. And these are for medications. These are for imaging. These are for surgeries. These are for inpatient hospitalizations. And it's taking productivity out of our workforce. It's an incredible amount of extra work that a doctor has to do to advocate for their patients for care that we believe is medically necessary. And when these prior authorizations are denied, and they're being denied at a record rate right now, it harms patients. There's serious adverse events that happen. I had a patient who was denied an inpatient hospital stay for severe preeclampsia in pregnancy, the leading cause of maternal morbidity and mortality in this country. And it's exhausting. I use the word moral injury because it really makes my blood boil when we signed up to take care of patients and we're constantly being questioned by insurance companies. Are you really doing what we're supposed to be doing for these patients?
Jamie, Dr. Potter froze. We'll try and get her back. You had sent me a stat when you said moral injury. I was like, oh, that's an interesting phrase. What does that really mean? You backed it up for me with this AMA study that 95% of doctors report burnout from prior authorizations. Why? What do the uninitiated, the lay people, not understand about what this dynamic does that hurts not just the doctor, but the practice of medicine?
Well, when you continually deny patients care, it gets so exhausting that we look for ways to take care of patients that don't involve insurance companies. And there's doctors leaving medicine at an incredible rate right now to do cash pay practices and concierge medicine to just completely bypass the insurance companies. But that is only affordable to a very small percentage of our patients. And so as a boots on the ground physician, I have to stand in the ring and I have to fight back. But it is an incredible amount of time. It's mental exhaustion, and patients are being harmed the more that these insurance companies are allowed to require prior authorizations. We need someone to step in and say, no, there needs to be a very small percentage of things that get checked out. Doctors are smart people. I went to school for 26 years, Chris. I've been in clinical practice for over almost 13 years now. There are smart doctors out there doing the right things for their patients. And this is just another layer of stress and burden on our system.
So the insurance answer is, and look, United Healthcare is welcome to come on and have this conversation. Jamie, they say, well, there's so much waste and abuse otherwise. People authorize things, they double bill. This is our way of making sure that patients get the care that we can provide by making sure there's nothing extra, there's nothing superfluous that is billed on their behalf. And we do it before, not after. We're not screwing them after, which is, of course, not true either.
Well, they do.
They do
Screw them after. Right. Yeah, I mean, This is, it's sometimes a surgery or a hospitalization has already occurred and they come back and say, no, we're not paying for that. And you know what that does? That puts the cost as an out-of-pocket cost for the consumer who pays these premiums to their insurance companies. And then they turn around and deny care for medications and surgeries and imaging, and they expect the patient to just pay for it. I totally understand that there is waste and fraud. Absolutely. I agree with that. Let's go after those things, but look at the profits that these insurance companies are making. I mean, the numbers just speak for themselves. And that is what has made people so angry, not just patients, but the doctors and the people who are delivering the healthcare.
Jamie, thank you. I appreciate you pointing this out. I lost Potter, but I'll thank her, and you thank her for me also. And let's stay on this and keep developing angles of how we can expose this. And I'll try to loop them in, and I'll loop lawmakers in who are looking at it, because we're reaching a boiling point. And I don't care about that punk Luigi. That's not the way to create real change. But this problem's been going on a long time. And we keep exposing it. Thank you for helping me. Best to you and the family.
Thanks, Chris.
Did I get the handle right? Dr. Fit and Fabulous? Is that it?
You did.
I said to Jamie, that should have been my handle, but I'm not a doctor. All right, we'll be right back.